Can the Buccaneers take advantage of a weak Houston offensive line? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. Keys to the game and predictions coming up in a little bit, but we have to start with the injury issues on both sides for this Monday Night Football game. We're going to start, of course, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Luke Goedeke, who missed the first two practices this past week, was limited on Saturday. He is questionable heading into Monday night. Bowles told the media, quote, "He was limited, but he moved around and did some things. We have to see how he's feeling after today's practice, and we'll probably work out before the game to see where he is at," end quote. That basically boils down to Goedeke being a game time decision. If he can go, you are looking at the same offensive line that the Bucs had last week, with Barton at left tackle, Michael Jordan elevated from the practice squad playing left guard, Ben Bredesen at center, and then Goedeke over there at right tackle. If he cannot go, it will be Charlie Heck getting the start at right tackle. None of this is ideal when facing the Texans front four, but I'd much rather see what the Bucs had last week instead of putting in the guy that they literally rearranged the entire offensive line to avoid starting. Other than that, Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin, they return to practice, but they are both out. That is to be expected. Benjamin Morrison and Christian Izien are both listed as questionable, but are expected to play. Morrison will likely see the majority of his action on special teams, barring some kind of injury. If Dean or McCollum come off the field, he is the next man up. Sounds like the plan right now is to use Izien a little bit more as part of their basic defensive game plan. Bowles had this to say about Christian Izien, quote, "He is physical. He brings a lot to the table, not just defensively, but special teams wise as well. He gives us a lot of depth at nickel, at both safety spots, and even emergency corner. He can do a variety of things on special teams, and he flies around. It's just good to have his energy out there," end quote. As for the Texans, it's more bad news for their offense. As we talked about last week, they lost their starting center, Jake Andrews, to a high ankle sprain. He is going to miss multiple weeks. Then they're also going to be without receivers Christian Kirk and Braxton Berrios. Both of those guys are dealing with hamstring issues. Look, last week against the Rams, CJ Stroud had 2.42 seconds on average to throw the football. That's just under what Baker had against the Falcons, but it resulted in just two passes that were at least 20 yards downfield. And on those passes, Stroud went 0 for 2 with an interception. He has had no time to set and let things develop down the field. 16 of his 24 attempts were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That is going to have to be the game plan against the pass rush coming from Vita and Calijah Kancey up the middle. And then, of course, you have the guys on the edge. Losing Andrews makes the weakest offensive line in the NFL even weaker, and that's exactly what the Bucs have to be able to take advantage of. I'll talk more about the pass rush coming up a little bit later, but I want to talk about the receivers. No Kirk, no Berrios. That leaves it up to Nico Collins, and then rookies Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll. They do have former Buccaneer receiver Justin Watson, but this is going to be the Nico Collins, Nick Chubb, Dalton Schultz show for the Texans offense. The rookies, Higgins and Knoll, combined for 5 targets last week, which was the same as Schultz and Collins each had individually. Then their other targeted players were Xavier Hutchinson with 2, Justin Watson with 2, Cade Stover with 4, and then the running backs, Dare Ogunbowale, Nick Chubb, and Dameon Pierce combined for 4 total targets. So you take a look back at the average depth of target for CJ Stroud last week. It was 6.7 yards. His air yards per attempt were 5.7. That's because he was having to hyper target those tight ends and Nico Collins on short, quicker routes because the Houston offense their offensive line is not going to change. It is what it is at this point, and they've only gotten worse. So the short targets, the quick targets, that is going to be exactly the same on Monday night unless the Buccaneers give Houston a reason to change. If the pass rush is not getting home, if the Bucs are not taking advantage of that atrocious O-line, then that's when Nick Caley is going to start calling longer developing plays and taking his shots down the field with the speed of his receiving core, that the Texans do have. They have some speed. Collins, Higgins, and Knoll can all get down the field in a hurry, but it's going to fall on the protection as to whether or not they actually do that. Back to the Bucs real quick and the injuries that they're dealing with. I don't think they can win this game if Goedeke isn't on the field. I cannot see Charlie Heck being able to hold up against this pass rush. You didn't trust him against Atlanta's pass rush. I certainly don't trust him against Houston's. The line already had some struggles last week. Baker was pressured on 5.4% of dropbacks. He was blitzed 10 times. He only had 2.47 seconds on average to throw the ball last week. Matthew Stafford for the Rams against this defense, he had 2.26 seconds. That is a massive difference. I know you're sitting there going, James, you're only talking about 0.2. 0.2 of a second against that pass rush is the difference between getting the ball away and taking a sack. So when the inactives are announced at 5:30 tomorrow afternoon, make sure that you are keeping an eye on it. If Goedeke can't go, the Bucs have a solid chance in this game. If he doesn't, I do not think that they are going to be able to protect Baker long enough or open up enough running lanes to get a win in Houston. Going to jump into the chat real quick. First off, shout out to Mikey in the chat. His birthday is tomorrow. He said all he wants is a Buccaneers win. Mikey, I hope you have a wonderful birthday. I hope the Bucs do that for you. Bantry in the chat. Chubb is good, but nowhere near what he used to be. I would agree. And I love Nick Chubb. I'm a huge Nick Chubb fan, but I have to tell you, I am thankful that the Bucs are facing Nick Chubb and not Joe Mixon. I would be much more concerned about what this Houston offense can do, even with this offensive line, if Mixon was in the game compared to Nick Chubb. Destined for greatness. Defense has to come out to play this week. Absolutely. It's going to fall on them 100%. Demon Hunter, have Levante David and Tyke blanket Dalton. I think we should be confident in Voss covering Chubb, Zion on Nico. I think that's probably going to be the plan. I could also see a lot of Jacob Parrish on Dalton Schultz. That size-wise is a mismatch, but I think Parrish can hold his own against Schultz and get in the way of those quick passing lanes because he is so quick and twitchy and can really disrupt things on those shorter routes. So do not be surprised if you see Dalton Schultz split out from the line up in the slot, and then all of a sudden he is covered by Parrish and you have Tyke coming down to go up against Higgins or Knoll or whoever it is. But I do think that you're going to see McCollum on Nico Collins more often than not. You are going to have those times where Jamel Dean is lined up on him just because the Bucs don't shadow receivers. So Houston is going to try really hard to make sure that they are creating the mismatches that they want by moving Nico Collins all over the field and trying to, create opportunities for him in the passing game. One more quick one. Bregu. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that that username. Let's see. Oh, that was not the one. I saw one that, oh, here it is. I'm sorry, Alex. Bucs will win without Goedeke. Trust that they will adapt. I hope you're right. I will say that. I hope you're right. But I have zero confidence in the Bucs' confidence in Charlie Heck after the changes that we saw made last week before the Atlanta game. All right. Keys to victory. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's honestly my favorite way to follow along with football. And PrizePicks puts their members first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listener review every day. So what do the Buccaneers need to do in order to win this game? Let's start this on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm not just going back to the well. I am doubling down. It's going to be Emeka Egbuka that is going to have to get this offense moving up and down the field. I talked about it a little on the crossover episode last week, but Jalen Petrie was absolutely atrocious in the slot for Houston against the Los Angeles Rams. Puka absolutely roasted him out of that slot corner position. Well, Emeka lined up in the slot on nearly 50% of his snaps last week. So that's going to be a major mismatch and a way for the Bucs to use Houston's speed and aggressiveness against them. The same way that Stroud had 67% of his attempts last week be 10 yards or less, it's going to have to be the same for the Bucs in this matchup, at least early on in the game to get the offense rolling. Egbuka, Tez Johnson, Shep, even Evans and Otten, whoever you can get into that slot position needs to be the first read on any given play, and then fire that thing off and get it into the hands of your playmaker while you attack the weakest player on the Texans defense. Once the ball is in their hands, let them make plays with their legs. Egbuka was phenomenal in yards after catch at Ohio State. We know that Tez, when he gets the ball in space, is absolutely electric and makes defenders miss even more so than Bucky did last year. Speaking of Bucky, him or Rashad in the slot, they can make magic happen in that open space. Otten is just going to punish guys that try to bring him down if he's going over the middle. All of this is going to lead to long, methodical drives that end in points. And those points in this game are going to come at a premium. Chances are Evans is going to be going up against Derek Stingley Jr. for most of the game. And while you'll take Evans one-on-one with most anyone, it is not going to be a matchup that you want to test very often. You're going to have to scheme ways to spring Evans into the open field. Stingley is one of the best cover corners in the NFL, so the Texans are going to want him shadowing Evans in this game. Evans has never scored against the Houston Texans. He was 1 yard shy in their last matchup. His butt came down just outside of the goal line. But that's one of 3 teams in the NFL that Mike Evans has never scored against in his career, along with the Raiders and the Patriots. He's going to get a shot at the Pats this year, but Evans himself said it last week. This might be the last time he goes to play in Houston in his NFL career. So while he's going to want to ball out, the Bucs cannot force things in his direction. The best thing that Evans can do is in this one is draw their attention to open things up for the other guys over the middle and against Petrie. Whatever is going to end drives and touchdowns, it does not matter who gets the ball. I just think that the Texans are going to do whatever they can to remove Mike from the equation and force the Bucs to win with someone else. Defensively, it's all about the pass rush. Everything has to be about attacking CJ Stroud relentlessly and unapologetically. Last week, the Bucs blitzed Penix on 12 of his dropbacks. Stroud was blitzed on just 4 of his dropbacks, and he completed 4 passes. So he was 100% against the blitz. Yet, when they didn't blitz, he did not complete passes. He did not air it out, and he was sacked 3 times. For the Bucs in this one, it's going to be about picking your spots. You're going to want to see a lot of delayed blitzes in this game. Let Vita and Kancey do their thing up the middle. Let Reddick and Yaya come off the edges. That's when the lanes are going to open up, and you can send Antoine and Voss and Levante and Izzy on those delayed blitzes through the gaps that are created to get a clear shot at Stroud. It's going to be a really, really delicate balancing act because of how fast Stroud is going to try to get the ball out of his hands because of those issues in the trenches in front of him. So you really have to pick your spots. You do not want to go blitz heavy in this game. You want to roll with your natural pass rush as much as possible because that should already be creating issues for Stroud as it is. But find those opportunities. Do not do it on third down. I don't want to see the Bucs blitz on third down at all in this game because that's what's going to be expected. That's what they're going to plan for. That's when they're going to draw up those quick passes. And now all of a sudden you've taken someone out of the second level of your defense to go after Stroud, and that's going to leave more open area for their receivers to get yards after the catch. You send your blitzes on first and second down. You create that long down and distance situation that now Stroud is going to have to sit in the pocket and hold the ball a little bit longer to let that play develop. And that's when your natural pass rush is going to be able to take advantage of the weakness of the offensive line, and your secondary can take advantage of probably a forced bad pass because he's under duress by the time he's finally ready to let the ball go. The secondary has to come away with an interception in this game. McCollum, if he gets his hands on one, has to be able to corral it and actually make the catch. Antoine, he's going to be the one to set the tone. Parrish is going to see a lot of targets come his way because of the hot reads by Stroud to avoid pressure. These guys have to step up and make a play to steal a possession. That is going to be the difference between a win and a loss in this game. This is going to be a low-scoring, nasty, ugly game. One stolen possession will be a deciding factor when all is said and done. And you want the Bucs defense to be the ones to steal that possession, not Houston's. Reddick was second in the NFL in pass rush win rate last week with 22.6%, but that has to be turned into sacks. If the Bucs don't come away with multiple sacks in this game, there are going to be some serious questions that have to be answered moving forward. There is no reason that they shouldn't be able to get to Stroud and get him on the ground in this game. He was sacked 3 times last week, and that was with Jake Andrews. Going to jump into the chat again real quick. Richard in the chat, delayed blitzes work only if secondary can keep their coverage. I believe that they can. I absolutely believe that they can in this game, and I'll tell you why. It's because with the natural pass rush already closing in, sending that delayed blitz is going to force the ball out of Stroud's hand before he wants to let it go. That's going to set your secondary up for big play opportunities. I'm not worried about this Texans receiving core outside of Nico Collins. I think he's one of the best young receivers in the NFL. I love watching him play football, just not against the Buccaneers. So I think the matchup for the secondary in this game is actually a really, really good one. Narav in the chat says, time for Morrison to step up. Well, I mean, he hasn't had the opportunity to step up because he didn't play last week. But again, you're probably not going to see him on a lot of defensive snaps in this game, barring an injury. He's going to play a lot of special teams. I don't know how often he's going to get on the field in defensive alignments. We're going to have to wait and see on that one. We got Richard again. Special teams will be the difference. Both teams' offense and defense cancel each other out. Big game for Chase. We need a bounce back from Chase McLaughlin, because if he kicks the way that he did against Atlanta, I will never again refer to him as Illinois legend, because that was a bad performance. But watching all the games on Sunday, kicking is not going well for pretty much anybody in the league except for Brandon Aubrey, because he is the best kicker in the league. But lots and lots of missed kicks and missed extra points throughout the NFL. I don't know what's going on. It's like some sort of flu that every one of these kickers has caught. All right, predictions are coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We all turn to some funny places for advice. Your barista, your barber, maybe even a random stranger in the bathroom. But not everyone is the right one when it comes to real support. That's why BetterHelp is here. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 10 years of experience, BetterHelp helps you find your right match, someone clinically trained and credentialed to guide you through life's challenges. What's great is how flexible they are. You can join sessions online from home or on the go, which makes therapy fit into your busy schedule. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Hey, Locked On Bucs fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. And you guys know that I travel all over the place for my son's hockey. We're going to Minneapolis next month. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Wrapping things up here on a live preview episode of Locked On Bucs, and you all know the drill. Drop your bold, your player, and your score predictions in the chat. We're going to start with the bold prediction here, and I'm going with the Bucs defense gets 4 sacks and 2 takeaways. I cannot imagine that this Houston offensive line is going to be able to keep Vita and Kancey at bay for long, if at all. Those two are going to be a nightmare for Stroud all throughout this game. And the sooner you get those two going, the faster that Stroud's internal clock is going to be sped up. And that's when the mistakes start to happen. That's when he's going to start seeing ghosts, as Sam Darnold had once said. As a result, he's going to get knocked around, and then he's going to start making those mistakes. You just have to find a way to take advantage, which I think the secondary will. I'm looking at Antoine and I'm looking at Tyke as the two that are going to come away with takeaways in this game because of the way that they can read the field, the way that they can anticipate where a ball is going. Antoine showed that last week on that key pass breakup on the target to Casey Washington. Those are the two guys that just seem to have a nose for the football. Both of them need to come up with massive, massive plays to take advantage of what that Buccaneers pass rush is doing. My player of the game for this one, for a second straight week, it's the rookie. It's Emeka Egbuka. He made me look like a genius last week when I pointed out the matchup with Mike Hughes, and then he turned around and beat him for 2 touchdowns. This week, it's the matchup with Jalen Petrie. That's where the Bucs can really get the offense moving. Egbuka only had 6 targets last week, but he brought in 4 of them, scored those 2 touchdowns. I expect his targets to hit at least 10 against Houston this week. Petrie has no chance against him, and Grizz the Wiz knows that. He will lead the team in yards again this week, and he's going to find the end zone at least once, maybe more. As for my score prediction, look, I said this is going to be a nasty, ugly game. If Luke Goedeke plays, I think the Bucs can win. So this score prediction is contingent on Goedeke getting the start. It's going to be another game where you want to rip your hair out. You're going to scream at the TV a bunch because the offense doesn't look great. They're going to be held to more than just a couple of 3 and outs. They're going to miss a lot of chances because the pass rush is going to be draped all over Baker Mayfield. But like I said on the crossover, in a game like this, where the two teams are so evenly matched and the defenses on both sides are likely to rule the day, I'm going to take the offense that has the better weapons, that has the better matchups, that has the better opportunities. To me, that is the Buccaneers offense compared to Houston's. They can create more mismatches with the skill position players that they have. And, that is the biggest difference between the Bucs offense and the Texans offense is you look up and down. Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, Tez Johnson, Sterling Shepard, Cade Otton, Bucky Irving, Rashad White. The Texans are not that deep at the skill position right now because of the injuries to their receiving core. I'm going to take the Bucs to win this one 20-16. I texted Evan Klosky. He is sticking with Houston 19-16 in this game. Let's see what you guys are predicting in the chat. All right. Richard says the Texans are still favored to win by 2.5 points. Yep. I mean, but remember, the home team gets 3. Home team gets 3 points. So Vegas is basically looking at this one as a pick'em. David, my Ohio brother, 34-9 Bucs. No TDs for Stroud again. 2 picks. One is a pick 6 by Zion. Lakita in the chat says 21-17 Bucs. Bat W also saying a pick 6 from Zion. Bantry. Bold prediction, Reddick, Diaby, Vita, and Kancey each get at least 1 sack. Bucs defense pitches their first shutout. Mike and Emeka Egbuka each get a touchdown. Final score, Bucs win 24-0. Demon Hunter says 31-21, Bucs win, and a Benjamin Morrison pick 6. If Benjamin Morrison gets a pick 6, I'm wearing the Notre Dame hat on the live show after the game. Even though Notre Dame is 0-2, though they got kind of screwed against Texas A&M. I'm sure Mike had plenty of razzing for Benjamin Morrison in that one. Let's see, Demon Hunter says Houston doesn't see the end zone. He corrected his score prediction to 31-9. Narav says, boo Evan Klosky. No, we're not going to boo Evan Klosky. I know you're saying that in jest and joking around. Look, I'm not going to pick the Bucs to win every game this year. This one, I like I said, my prediction is contingent on Goedeke playing. If we get the inactive report and Goedeke is on there and Charlie Heck is going to start this game, I think the Texans win. I really, truly do. Without Wirfs, the offensive line is already going to have enough problems. Without Goedeke, I think it's too much to overcome. So that's where I stand on that one. I won't give a score prediction, but you guys know if Goedeke's out, I'm out on the Bucs winning this game. Richard says, Bucks got to break this Texans curse and win it. If anything, for Mike, yeah, for those that don't know, Bucks won the first ever meeting between these two teams. Since then, Houston has won 5 straight. The Bucks have not won in Houston. In fact, last time they did this, I want to say that the Bucks never even beat the Oilers in Houston. And then, yeah, gotta snap the primetime streak. So it's not the end of the world if the Bucks don't win this game again. And this is something we'll talk about deeper into the season when it comes to playoff scenarios. If you're going to lose games, it's better to lose to the AFC than it is to NFC opponents. But it would be really nice to get off to a 2-0 start yet again under Todd Bowles. Ernie, Bucks 27-20. Irving with 100+ yards. I like that one. Destined for greatness. The Texans haven't scored more than 20 or 23 points since week 12 last season. Then he says Hassan Reddick with the hat trick. You know, I did hear that, and I completely forgot about it. I remember hearing that stat that the Texans haven't scored more than 23 since week 12 of last year. And I'm like, oh, I need to make sure I bring that up on the preview, and completely forgot. Been a busy weekend. So, Destin, I appreciate you bringing that up. That was absolutely perfect timing. Speaking of timing, that's it for this one. We will be going live after the game on Monday night. There will be a live reaction show. It's probably going to be a little bit quicker than they generally are, just because, you know, I'm going to have to get a little bit of sleep. I do still have to work Tuesday morning, so it's already going to be a super late night for me. Thank goodness it's a doubleheader and the kickoff is at 7 p.m. But make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on so that when we go live, you can jump in and join us in the live chat. Until then, please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. You can follow on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs at both of those places. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube, leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.